All right. I don't think this works. Just walking and thinking and walking. It's a beautiful day outside. It seems like a random thought, I guess. I've noticed over the years of being a believer and being a man, young man, regular sized man, I don't know what to call it. I've noticed in a lot of like Christian spaces, oh, there's some chickens over there. It doesn't even just have to be Christian spaces, but we seem to, as men, spend a lot of energy in trying to reaffirm or reestablish or get a better grasp, I guess, on quote-unquote manhood and masculinity. There are lots and lots of conferences and books and sermons and stuff like that talk about manhood, masculinity, and that, you know, there's a crisis of masculinity, there's a crisis of manhood, especially in the United States. And I get it, sort of. The thing that I'm wrestling with, I guess, this probably wasn't a good street to walk on and talk. We always like to look at different examples of men in the Bible, right? Whether it's David or Gideon or Abraham or whoever. And of course, you know, you always got to talk about Jesus, which makes sense. And I think my question is, in regards to Jesus and using him as, you know, the pinnacle of humanity, not just masculinity, but humanity in general. That's, you know, the example that we have, the Son of God, you know, that we're the image that we're supposed to be being conformed into. I wonder how Jesus would approach this topic, this discussion, this issue, right? Because in my mind, if we are modeling what Jesus did, you know, he only did what he saw his Father do, right? And a lot of what Jesus did during his earthly ministry was kind of against the cultural standard of what he was supposed to be doing anyway. You know, outside of, you know, doing blatant things to break the law, you know, the Jewish law or whatever, God's law. So, you know, sinning and adultery and all that kind of stuff or whatever, right? But he was doing stuff that was making the men that he was around, like, look at him weird, you know? We like to bring up this story about the woman who was caught in adultery, right? And in that situation, you have three major parties, right? You got the men who caught this woman in adultery. You have the woman, and then you got Jesus. And I guess there's a fourth party, you know, like the disciples are hanging around, whatever. But based off of the standard at that time, Jesus was supposed to be like on board with stoning the woman, right? Because she was caught in adultery. But what did Jesus do? He, you know, said, "He that without sin cast the first stone." And he actually encouraged the woman, showed her grace and mercy and love, and said, "Hey, don't sin no more. Go on about your way." Like, where are your accusers? Where are all these jokers who are saying all this crazy stuff? But, you know, if Jesus was trying to conform to what masculinity was, or manhood, or righteousness at that time, he would have done some dumb stuff. That lady would have lost her life. But Jesus didn't do that. He did what the Father told him to do, what the Spirit led him to do. And it made him act odd in the eyes of the men that were around him. Or the woman with the alabaster box came and, you know, anointed his feet and stuff like that. The guys that were around, Pharisees, apostles, whatever, disciples, again, more men who was hanging around, were like, you know, whispering and say, if Jesus knew what kind of woman this was, and da-da-da-da, he wouldn't let this happen, so on and so forth. Jesus was more or less like, yo, shut up. ain't nobody offer to clean my feet or do anything like that. She's doing what's right. Or the woman with that issue of blood. You know, she actually touched his garment. And, you know, the disciples that were around were like, you know, get this woman away from him. What are you doing? Whatever. Jesus showed her love. There's story after story where Jesus is doing the opposite of what would be, quote unquote, at that period of time, what's considered masculine or the manly thing to do. And so I wonder, in these conversations that we're having, I wonder, are we really listening to God in what his plan is for us as men? Or are we holding on to like old ideals and beliefs of things that we understand to be masculine, or we understand to be manly, or whatever? And I think, to me, it's also kind of like a double-edged sword. Not a double-edged sword, but there's an extra layer to it. As black men, I feel like we need to navigate the situation a lot differently than what the overarching narrative might be saying. I'm just wondering, like, if Jesus was, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do during this whole conversation and discussion? And my guess is he would just do what the Father told him to do. And more than likely, it wouldn't be what all this stuff that we were getting rah-rah about and getting angry about and fighting for. Jesus was interested in doing what the Father told him to do, and he was there to serve his people, men and women and children. He was there to serve the least of these and, show up and become the savior of the world. He was there to serve. And it wasn't about him getting accolades or anything like that. It wasn't about him being the most right or whatever. He was just showing up and doing what the Most High told him to do, which was to serve and love these people, give them the truth. I don't know, I just curious, like, it seems like as a community, and it seems like as believers, particularly as men, we're getting real stuck on trying to prove that we're men, trying to prove that we're masculine, trying to prove or hold, a certain standard or position in the grand scheme of things. When maybe in reality we should just be listening to whatever God is telling us to do. And the Spirit might be leading us to do something that maybe at the time doesn't seem like the manly thing to do. And I don't know. Like, people like to toss around the word simp. A man is loving his wife and, cares about her and serves her and does everything for her or wants the best for her. We like to call him a simp. Or, say he's soft or saying all this other stuff. Or maybe he's just doing what the Most High put on his heart to do. Hey, you gave me this woman. I found this good thing and I'm going to give my all to her. And maybe it's just that simple. But we get real caught up in trying to believe what other people say, what other men say, what we think is the right thing because it makes us feel good. I don't know. I'm just contemplating. But to me, it seems to be a consistent issue within the church. Like, men are trying real hard to show up a certain way and to prove their worth. When in reality, maybe we just need to do like Jesus and just do what God is telling us to do. And maybe it's really simple. Maybe it's just stand up for what's true, stand up for what's right, and serve those around us. Just be a servant leader. I don't know. And don't care what other people are saying. Don't care what the world is saying. Not being conformed to this world. I don't know. Just some thoughts.